What's up guys, it's Jano. So in today's video, we're going to be teaching you how you can make a shit ton of money even if you're a little bit retarded. Now, a little bit about me, I'm 23 years old and I became a millionaire this year, even by still being just a tad retarded. And what I mean by this is I didn't go to college, I don't have a super high IQ, I'm no genius, but I understood something that most people don't when it comes to business. So first, let's say your goal is to make $1 million within this year. Now, most people's business models that they get into are products or services that are usually low ticket. Let's say, for example, the product or service that you're going to be selling in this business model is $100. So this would mean with a $100 product or service, you would have to sell it 834 times a month, or literally 28 times a day to random strangers. You need to sell to 834 different people every single month and 28 per day. Now let's compare that number to say your product or service was $2,000. And this would bring it all the way down to only selling this to 42 different people a month and all the way down to around 1 or 2 people a day. So you're probably thinking, okay, if it was easier to sell a $2,000 product 42 times compared to a $100 product or service, then everyone would be doing it. But what if I told you that selling something for $2,000 can actually be a lot of times easier than a low ticket item? So I want you guys to better understand with this analogy. So in 1849, if you don't know, that there was the famous California gold rush, right? And basically what happened is that somebody found gold in California, and by 1849, 1850, around 300,000 people moved to California searching for gold. And it's funny because by the end of the gold rush, while everyone was searching and found a little bit of gold here and there, the people that actually made the most money were the people that were selling all the shovels. Now, this is usually a famous saying that people relate to business, but this is just to prove that I'm not saying selling low ticket items to consumers like, drop shipping or, having an app or things like this. I have a very successful software company where we sell low ticket items. But for the most part, if you want to make the most amount of money, you're going to have to sell to businesses, not consumers. This really relates back to what we were talking about between the $100 versus $2,000 item, right? Because most people, when they start a business, they start around products or services around here because this is what they're used to. This is what the things that they're buying. Because they, almost most people would imagine that who's actually going to buy something for $2,000 consistently. Now, the problem is that the most people don't understand is when you're selling to creators, influencers, entrepreneurs, businesses, $2,000 sometimes is less percentage of the bank account than a random consumer spending $100. So you might think $2,000 is some outrageous number, but people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on products and services all the time. And some of my favorite business models that I've seen online are businesses where you're helping other businesses or entrepreneurs make more money. Because these are business models where you could have only a few clients or sell a few products and make a shit ton of money. Now, I really like this analogy with shovel sellers and gold miner when it comes to business, because most people are actually here. Most people are the gold miners that are, running business models like drop shipping, trading, freelance, brand scaling, so much others. And I'm never going to diss any of these business models. I know people that are successful with them. And even when people say something like drop shipping is oversaturated, it's not going to work anymore, there's going to be someone that starts today and ends up making a lot of money. So I'm never going to sit there and say that these business models don't work, because they do. But let's not forget that saturation is a real thing. And you have to understand, when you're running business models like these, you are competing with not only the guys that have been around for 10, 15 years, you're also competing with thousands of different guys that are your age that are starting when you're starting. Because the amount of people that are doing these business models is literally within the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Now, I'll never say that these business models are impossible, but all I'm trying to nail in your head is the point that you want to be ahead of the curve when it comes to business. It's the same as the crypto market. When your grandma starts talking about crypto, maybe it's time to sell. When the mainstream starts knowing about something, now it's too late. And it's the same a lot of the time with business. A good example of a shovel seller right now is somebody that sells a course, because you have to think about it. They are ahead of the curve. It's the exact same thing as the gold rush. People wanted to make money off the gold, which are these business models, and the course guy comes into play and gives them the shovel. Like I was talking about before, is that you want to sell to people that want to make money. A lot of people actually have a bad opinion on courses. I would actually be honest. I know there's a lot of scammers out there, but I've bought a lot of courses and mentorships along the way in my business journey, and it's definitely helped me a lot make a lot of money. So I think, yes, there's a lot of scammers out there, but for the most part, online education is a great tool for you to improve your knowledge. Now, the problem with courses that people don't get, and everyone thinks that's an easy business model to run, but it actually isn't. Most people that are doing very successful with courses are some people that are super, super popular. Now, this kind of leads me into what I actually do for a living, is running a clipping agency. Now, the problem is with courses is, even though a lot of the times people become successful with it, to really become a successful course seller that's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, you damn near have to be a pretty big influencer. You have to become pretty famous. Not only do you have to run the actual logistics of the course and run it as a business, you also have to make a lot of content and basically become famous to an extent. Now, when it comes to running a clipping agency, I'm going to try to not be biased, even though it is the business model that I run, but it really does hit the sectors of what I'm talking about with selling the shovel. Not only are you ahead of the curve while everyone's maybe trying to become a clipper or running all these business models, you're doing something that maybe less than 100 people at this point are doing. And really, essentially what you're doing as a clipping agency owner is that you're connecting clippers and editors with brands and influencers, companies, business owners, whatever, and you're basically allowing them to grow on social media with short form content, i.e., making them more revenue, getting them more leads, making them more money, making them more popular. This is exactly what I was talking about with the shovels and the gold miners analogy, is that you want to be selling the shovels to people that are actually already making a lot of money. When you're selling something like a course and a lot of these business models, yes, you might be able to charge $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, but you're still not necessarily selling to people that are successful entrepreneurs. With something like a clipping agency, and I know there's other business models like this, you're selling to already successful or somewhat successful business owners. There is hundreds of thousands of people that are trying to start a personal brand online that already have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, millions of dollars in the bank. And they haven't figured out the social media game. There's so much companies out there that have mastered ads, that have, mastered Google SEO, all these different marketing tactics, but they can't crack down on short form content. This is where I come in as the clipping agency owner and basically sell them the shovel. Now, in the last 6 months, business owners, influencers, entrepreneurs have realized how important short form content can be to make money online. So when I talk about running a clipping agency, I think people understand that, yes, it's not too saturated, maybe it's a good time to run, but I don't think people understand the actual level to this. And, a lot of people think that I'm biased because I run it, but I genuinely want to prove to you of why a business model like this, I'm not saying you have to run your own clipping agency, but business models like this are the best to start in 2025. Now, running a clipping agency and short form clips in general is like owning a TV commercial ad company back in the day. So many companies still do, but especially back then, were paying millions and millions and millions of dollars to have their company on a commercial in front of the eyes of millions of people. Now, the amount of people that actually sit there and watch TV has gone down drastically in the last 10 years. And you know what has gone extremely up? People on their phones, more so on social media, on Reels, on YouTube Shorts, and especially on TikTok. So now when most people hear that, they immediately get sad. They realize, how much time have I spent scrolling my entire life? Everybody's just addicted to their phones. How sad is that? But what you should actually be doing is become the person that actually uses short form to their advantage. Now we're sad and now we're happy. See how easy that was? Now, I would actually say that short form clips are going to become way bigger than TV commercials ever were. And I think they already are. Because you have to understand, with something like TV commercials, to get in front of, say, the Super Bowl audience, it would cost you millions and millions of dollars. We're talking, millions of eyeballs, and they definitely convert, but it would cost you a ton of fucking money. With something like short form clips, you can literally post a video and be in front of 10 million, 50 million, 100 million different people for fucking free. There's literally companies out there that from one clip have changed the whole trajectory of their business. I want you to understand that there is businesses out there that have done 10 million view, 50 million view videos and literally have made millions of dollars from a 30-second video. This is fucking crazy. And I want you guys to understand that the new currency right now is attention. If you could garner attention from a lot of people, you will, not a maybe or an if, you will make a lot of money. And to find out where all the attention is nowadays, just look around. Everybody is on their phones. The attention is scrolling on social media. Everybody's scrolling. Everybody's addicted to their phone. This is where the attention is. When I talk about running a clipping agency, I don't just look at it as, make money for a year and get out and, find something new. I look at it 5-10 years down the road, and this is where it's going to get very interesting. In 5 to 10 years, it will almost be like the first time on the internet where we have super young guys that are on the internet, but we also have, 50, 60-year-olds that are pretty adapt to the internet, that know what they're doing. So your market for the attention is basically everybody, no matter what country they're from. I mean, assuming that they have, running water and internet. And to be honest, it already is like this. A lot of our clients for our clipping agency are plus 30, are plus 40. It's not necessarily just a young man's game with short form content. Now, you rarely even ever hear about running a clipping agency, but I'm telling you, in around 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, you're going to hear everyone talking about it, because short form content is going to be so much more popular, and everyone's going to realize, even the older guys are going to realize that it's so important for their business. And you're going to hear everyone talking about this. And the people that become extremely successful with something like this are the people that start now, that actually sell the shovels, and still, instead of waiting for all the gold to come, where everyone's rushing for it. Now you get all the hype. A lot of people have this issue where they have almost shiny object syndrome, where they always go for the business model that has the most hype right now. It's the complete opposite. You want to go for the business models that nobody's talking about, because if it makes sense for you to run something like this and nobody's talking about it, it's going to be a lot easier than running a business model where you're competing with tens of thousands of people. So I made this chart for people that maybe are on edge about a clipping agency and don't know too much about it. And here's just a few logistics about it. So first, what is the saturation on a clipping agency? So this is going to be very low. This might be your first time hearing about a clipping agency. You might have watched my videos in the past and you might have heard it from a couple other people, but really there's not that much people that are running a clipping agency. For every one clipping agency owner, there's probably 10,000 clients. And I'm not even exaggerating here. That probably is the ratio around there. So the saturation is extremely low, which is very good for us. Next would be the startup cost. So the startup cost realistically can be around $0, but if you're somebody that wants to maybe spend something on a software, $50 a month to help you write emails, to help you DM, things like this, or maybe you're investing into mentorship or online education, that might cost you money. But for the most part, the startup cost for the actual agency is going to be very low, because, you're using the client's budget as your mean to pay people, and you're just taking a profit off that. So you're not going to have to pay for employees until you actually sign a client. So you realistically could start this at zero. It's going to obviously take a lot longer by doing this, but there really isn't much startup cost at all. Talk about the capacity. So the capacity is going to be medium, and you could even argue low. And what capacity means is basically like the capacity of how much money you could really make at a cap out for this business model. So I really say that, realistically hitting around $1 to $2 million a month is going to be the cap for most people. Because remember, you're not running a software company where your evaluation is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. You're not running a car company like Tesla where you're going to sell it for $1 billion. It is a clipping agency. And I think trying to get past, even someone like me, trying to get past $2 million a month is going to be extremely unrealistic. But I think most of you guys watching this are, even happy with, say, 20, 30K a month. So even this capacity doesn't affect you too much. So now we could recap to the beginning of the video. And our goal for this video is to show you how to make $1 million within a year. And we first talked about how $50 to $100 products might not be the best move for the most cash collected. And you might be trying to go for more $1,000 to $2,000 products or services. And I want you guys to understand, in my clipping agency, I'm selling a lot of the times, my biggest client ever when it comes to money has spent over $100K in a single month with us in budget. And I have so many concurrent clients that are spending 10 to 15K a month with me. And these profit margins are extremely high, around 60 to 70%. And I want you guys to understand, with my clipping agency, not only are we doing high ticket products, which realistically we don't go under 5K a month, so we wouldn't even be selling around here, we'd be selling a lot higher, but a lot of them are MRR, right? So monthly reoccurring revenue, meaning it's not just 10K one-time payment like somebody buys a product, it's 10K reoccurring. Not saying that there won't be any churn. Of course, you have to keep the clients happy, but you'll notice something. If you grow somebody's social media and you're actually good at what you do, it's very hard for them to leave. The churn rate we've noticed for most of the clients is very low. So I want to make this hypothetical to make it a lot more sense for you guys that making $1 million a year is actually not super hard. So let's say you run a clipping agency for an entire year. Let's say you're extremely lazy and you're ill-informed and you only signed one client within the whole year, which is very unrealistic if you're actually trying. But let's say you're just sleeping half the time and you sign one client. Now, let's say the client's spending around $5,000 with you a month. Not, usually one of the smaller budgets with a clipping agency, but let's just say $5,000. You might think that you need 200 different people at $5,000 to make $1 million. Now, this would be true if the 5K wasn't MRR. Now, what you have to realize with a clipping agency is what is your actual LTV per customer? Which basically means is how much does an average client spend with you in their entire lifetime of working with you? So realistically for my agency, we're a little bit more advanced, so it might be a little bit longer. But let's say an average clipping agency, even on the bad end, is a client's going to spend around 3 to 4 months with you, right? So now your LTV, basically how much you're getting per client, if they're spending $5,000 a month, is going to be actually more like $15,000 to $20,000. Right? Because they're usually going to stay for 3 to 4 months. Now, we've actually seen a little bit longer than this, and this would be assuming that, this is not taking in consideration that a lot of times when you grow somebody's social media for them and clipping, they're going to increase their budget. We've had guys that started off with 3K and ended up going to 20K, right? So this is just assuming that they stay at the same price, they're not too impressed, they just keep giving you the same budget every month. Your average LTV, even on the bad, even if it's 3 months, would be around 15K. Now, basically, instead of needing 200 clients paying you 5K, since most of them are going to stay 3-4 months, even at 3 months, you need to only sell to 66 people within the entire year to get to that $1 million a year. Now, let's assume you increase your average order value. Instead of, people just spending 5K a month with you, you increase it to 10K a month, 20K a month. You do really successful. With all of these different things, you're going to realize with a clipping agency, you could literally hit $1 million a year with less than 20 different people buying from you. And realistically, you could have one guy spending 100K a month with you and hit $1 million like that. That's going to be a little bit more unrealistic, but you could literally, with less than 20, maybe even less than 10 clients signed within the full year, you can make $1 million. It's really not as complicated as it seems. So a lot of you guys don't even need to get to this goal of $1 million a year. Of course you should be striving for the most as possible, but for a lot of you guys that want to make an extra 10 to 20, 30K a month, you could do that with 1 to 2 clients. Right? You could do that with one client. Yes, of course, you try to sign as much as you can, but sometimes making 10 to 20K a month with one client and you kind of have your whole day to yourself, sometimes it feels richer than someone making $1 million a month spending 14 hours a day. So for the people that are interested in running a clipping agency, I have free courses all over YouTube, probably somewhere on the screen or on the link in description, and I'll see you in the next video.